There's an estimated 90 million women in India who are not in education, employment, or training.
Today, I have Gayatri Lobo on EI Dialogues. Gayatri is the Chief Executive Officer of Educate Girls. Can you tell me the top 3 reasons why girls are either prevented to go to schools or are unable to go to schools?
Very often you're hit back with, "Haan, but shaadi to karni hai." I actually watched some of these girls sitting and writing the exams with their babies lying down next to them because these are older girls, right?
Why the fixation with inputs? What would it take to change the narrative on this?
I think it's going to take the CSR's committees asking those questions. Like, great building, so what?
You make it sound like it's so easy to work with the government.
I really enjoyed it.
Hello and welcome to EI Dialogues. My name is Pranav Kothari and I'm the CEO of Educational Initiatives. Our mission is to see a world where children everywhere are learning with understanding. We do this by making student assessments and an adaptive learning software. In our mission of children learning everywhere, there is a very important aspect of every child, every girl also sort of being part of this. And today I have Gayatri Lobo on EI Dialogues. Gayatri is the brand new Chief Executive Officer of Educate Girls, an organization that I've admired grow remarkably fast, solving a very important mission of bringing girls back to school, keeping them there, and I want to understand how she intends to take this forward. I envy Gayatri because I feel like she has done every slice of the education. Right now, she's working directly with the students, but previously, she was the Chief Operating Officer for Teach for India, where she worked with teachers, and then she was the CEO of ISLI, where she worked with school headmasters. So she's literally seen all 3 stakeholders of the school and the parents as well. And encompassing all of this, she's also been a funder as the head of the A.T.E. Chandra Foundation, where she made numerous grants to different organizations. I love the fact that across this cross-section, she would have learned many things. And today I'm curious to ask her about how does she feel about leveraging government investments? How does she use technology to be able to achieve this massive goal that she has set for herself? I'm doubtful if this scale would lead to any losses in quality, and I'd like to unpack as to how one can maintain that while scaling. And finally, I keep talking about learning outcomes, and so I'm going to test my hypothesis. If one is able to achieve outcomes, does it really matter that one has to even worry about inputs and outputs? So lots of exciting questions on my mind. Gayatri, you're going to be bombarded with all of these, but thanks for your time and welcome to EI Dialogues.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Gayatri, is there a moment in your childhood, person that set you off on the path that you're on?
So I can't name one person, but 2. My mother and my grandmother, and 2 very different ways. So my grandmother was a quiet but really kind person. And even when my cousins would bully me or, I was the only girl, so I was their favorite target, she would just respond and help me respond with kindness. And my mother was a lawyer and somebody who really advocated for everything being fair. So even between me and my brother, no distinction, even though we were different genders. She was very clear that if my brother got a watch when he was 7, I wouldn't get one when I'm 5, 2 years younger. I would have to wait till I'm 7 to get my first watch. I think these are kind of values that got embedded in me as I was growing up. And I started seeing things with the lens of fairness and kindness. When Teach India had this campaign with Times of India, I applied and I had already scouted out various NGOs that I wanted to volunteer with and found nobody wants people on weekends because obviously NGOs also need a break here. So when I applied to Teach India, I applied for a weekday and I got selected. So every Monday afternoon, I would leave office, go volunteer in a school for 2 hours and then come back. And that put a thought in my head that I need to be doing something more. Every time I go and teach in that school, I'm getting more out of it than the kids. I think that seed is what got planted in my head when I had a very strange experience where I was invited as one of the Teach India volunteers to some event with Hillary Clinton. Met Shaheen and the Teach for India folks there and long story short, 3 months later, I was working at Teach for India.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But volunteering is such a great way to get exposure, to get a real life
Absolutely.
immersion into something before deciding whether you want to do full time.
Absolutely.
What does the West do differently where volunteering is so mainstream?
What I think we've grown up learning to ignore problems that we see, right? I mean, we've grown up in Bombay. I don't remember where you've grown up, but we've grown up in Bombay, and you see young children begging at the window. You just learn to have these blinkers on and not notice. I think that empathy that we're able to see in the West is something that we need to change here. This ostrich mentality that if I look away, that problem doesn't exist. That needs to change. We need to talk about it more. We need to talk about our role in solving it.
Gayatri, like when you were at the A.T. Chandra Foundation, when you were deciding between multiple organizations to give, what was your mental model? Like, what was the framework that you were employing?
So we had a very clear strategy, like what we will do and what we won't do. That aside, there are still NGOs that you can support or work with within that. For me, what clicked really was how open these organizations were to show you how you can help them. Money is one thing, right? But if you're able to advocate for them, if you're able to figure out, okay, you need XYZ capacity building support in addition to the money that we are giving, and they're able to share that with you, I think for me that it made me much more comfortable giving such organizations versus the ones who painted a perfect picture.
And why is it hard for organizations to be vulnerable in front of their funders?
Because there are funders and there are funders, right? So most often, and I've been in that trap as well, most often you want to show that you have the best solution, you have everything in place, and therefore you're the best organization to give. And those funders want to see that. They want to see that you've got every line item perfectly estimated. If you've strayed 10% from that budget line item, that means you don't know what you're doing. And I don't know a single corporate who can manage their line items to that extent, right? So when they're saying, why is this 20,000 rupees? I think you can get it done for 15,000 rupees. You still need that money. So you suck it up and you do what they're asking you to do. And I think that's the trap, which is very easy to fall into in a world of scarcity.
Will we get out of this?
I really want to. Yeah. We need CSR heads, CSR team members, foundation team members to be on the field, to be actually experiencing from the eyes of the person you're trying to work with, rather than from the lens of a funder saying, how do I bring efficiency into everything? Efficiency is a given in a nonprofit because we live in a world of scarcity, right? But to then try and squeeze every rupee like you're, I don't know, buying soap in bulk, that then takes away from that empathy and that impact you're trying to create.
Were you a better giver because you had previously played roles where you were a doer, where you were an ask for funding?
I would like to think so. I think I spoke a lot more about these barriers, about the power dynamic.
Okay, tell us, like, why have you shifted from a comfortable giving position to the one where you are going to the remotest parts of India, talking to panchayat sarkars, talking to parents, getting them to just send their girl to school? Yeah. Like, why would you get out of the cozy Bombay, South Bombay life?
That is the word, comfortable and cozy. Those are the two words that I got very comfortable and very cozy. I had an amazing team who I could coast and do nothing. But I remember talking to a friend and he said, you're in your mid-40s. Why are you talking like you're retired? And he said, you used to have this fire in your belly. I don't see that anymore. So Educate Girls is an organization I deeply admired, as you did, as you do, hopefully.
I do, very much so.
So I think, and also then there's just timing worked, right? I said, I've built an organization. We've been able to do some tremendous work at the foundation, not just giving, right? We would advocate with the government. We actually got government to put money towards the work we were doing for the NGOs to be able to implement that work. We created that whole framework. It was the right time for the team to take over. In Educate Girls' role happened to open up. Sometime in Jan, Feb this year, this whole planetary alignment was happening It was happening in my life too.
Why is it so, like the mandate of Educate Girls to get girls back into schooling, for some of us who grew up in a certain way, seems one of those most basic things of right and equality. Can you tell me the top 3 reasons why girls are either prevented to go to schools or are unable to go to schools?
Yeah. So when you look at younger girls, it's largely
Young meaning?
young meaning you're 6 to say 11, 6 to 10
Years of age.
years of age.
Okay.
It's largely patriarchy. It's a lot to do with
So the patriarchy means that girls should not go to schools?
क्या जरूरत है?
Okay.
नहीं जाना है तो मत जाओ, right? There's a little callousness to it which comes from patriarchy. Migration is a big issue. Parents don't work in the village that they live in, so their kids have to go with them and especially girls, because who's going to take care of them? That is a bit of helplessness.
So when they migrate, let's say as a laborer in a construction site
or a farm,
they don't have then access to school.
Yeah, so they're going off for months together and then coming back.
Right.
The third is documentation. So they've never applied for a birth certificate. They've never applied for an Aadhaar card. That's the easy to solve. We just get it done for them. And we'll take them to the offices, get all their paperwork done.
And that's needed for school admission?
Yes.
Even in a free government
Yes,
school?
Absolutely. The first, and it documents vary by state, by the way. So we have to also be able to do it for that particular state. The issue where it's, kyun koi zarurat nahi hai, there is where our volunteers come in, convince the parents what it means for them, what it means for the girl. They get community pressure built up. They use influencers within the villages. The third category, the migrant ones, are the hardest.
Are you okay to role play? Can I be this patriarch? And
I will not do a good job, I can tell you that.
Okay, what are the top reasons that you tell this patriarch?
I think just what an education will do, even basic level for that child.
Okay.
When you are sick, can you even read what your doctor's prescription says? Handling money, even at the basic level, what it means for a girl to get educated. And 2, what are reasons to keep her at home?
The top 2 reasons are patriarchy and migration.
Migration, and then that's for the younger girls. Yes. For the older girls, patriarchy continues, but it's they're now old enough to take care of younger siblings. They're now old enough to do chores at home. So they're better off at home than in school because they're of use to me now. That's the harder age for us to bring back into school, and that's what we're focusing on now. This would be 11 to 14, so still within RTE.
Yeah.
All of this comes under our Vidya program.
Right.
Now, enrollment is one thing. We need to make sure they're learning and staying in school. So we have a curriculum, a Gyan Ka Pitara is what we call it, where the field coordinators are actually teaching those girls in school, teaching all the kids in schools. We work with the school management committees to ensure that school infrastructure is conducive to girls in school.
Right.
And so it's enrollment, retention, learning as a package that comes under Vidya.
Nice. And so, say in terms of, again here, the convincing now, in some ways you're saying the girl is more productive at home. How do you then sort of still enable the girl to go when younger siblings are at home or cooking and cleaning is left? What's your proposed solution to the decision maker?
We literally have to sit down with them and break it down in terms of time, what the future prospects for this girl are. Very often you're hit back with, but shaadi to karni hai. Right? But then how does she have agency even in that marriage? And those are the kind of conversations we need to have. And that's where then even the community comes into play. So if you're then the minority not sending your child to school, hey, even if it's shame that makes you do it, so be it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's then the level of support. And with those who are migrating, we try and get the girls into the Kasturba Gandhi schools where it's residential. So you go, of course you need to migrate, of course you need to do your job.
Yes.
Your daughter is safe in a very secure environment and thriving. A lot of them don't know that option exists or even how to access it. So that's where our volunteers come in.
Yeah, I think by my estimates, there are more than 10,000 residential schools for girls. I think there's under the Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya, KGBV. There is also run by the tribal
Yes, tribal
departments
welfare
in many
departments.
states.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it's
So
a
there
good.
are options. It's just, I don't even know, right? As a tribal family in rural Madhya Pradesh, how is that information coming to me? That's where our volunteers come in. Then if you move to girls who've dropped out of school and are now outside of RTE age stipulations, there we work with them to help them do their 10th and 12th through the open school system. So there's an estimated 90 million women in India who are not in education, employment, or training.
9-0.
9-0.
Wow.
Right? So
they're not in education, which means they're not studying.
Yeah.
They're not
in employment.
They're not working,
Yeah.
or at least in the formal space. And
they're not being trained, or skills are not being developed for something.
Themselves. Yeah. Wow. That's a
90
very
million.
large pool of capital that we're not tapping into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, what that can do for our country's progress, right? So we are working with so two things we're doing. One, we're setting up learning camps in the districts and the states that we work to help these girls study for their exams. Now, we're not experts in every subject, but we try and create content. We make books for them to learn from. We have practice exams. I actually watched some of these girls sitting and writing the exams with their babies lying down next to them, because these are older girls, right? So there we then also work with the state government to make their open schools accessible to these girls. So can they have a fee waiver? Because again, money is a barrier if you're a woman and you're in extreme poverty. Even if it's 2,000 rupees, it's very hard to convince the elders in your family to let me go do this exam. So one is a fee waiver. The second is, can we get subjects that are actually applicable to their lives? So a little more practical subjects. And then can we have exam centers that are accessible, right? So it's again hard to tell a family that now for the next 5 days, this woman who's been doing all the work in your house is going to go every day to a place, 20 kilometers away to write her exam. So
yeah.
And then maybe at some point, the government even does the study centers that we are currently running.
I think that sort of tags go away.
Yeah.
Gayatri, how does Educate Girls leverage all the investments that the government is already making? By my estimates, the government's spending about 350,000 crores in education. The private sector is spending on top of that. Are you tapping into any of that? Are you leveraging those fixed investments?
Yeah, leveraging, yes, because we work with government school systems. So the girls who are enrolling into schools are going to government schools that exist in their villages or nearby. We also work as per NEP. Girls and children should have alternate forms of educating. And hence, that's where the open school systems come in. A lot of governments already have open school systems.
Yeah.
What we are trying to do is, one, help them make it more accessible, make it more learner-friendly, and actually help kids, get good marks and finish their 10th standard.
Yeah.
So it's all using existing government policies, existing government systems. With our open school systems program that we're doing, so Pragati, like I was talking about, for older girls, the forms of delivery can be us directly, with partners in districts that we are not present in, and with government. So with government, we set up a technical assistance unit with a curriculum expert, with the technical expert, who can actually help, say, build an app to help access or learning, create a website with courses that people can do. So that's our role, helping the government do what they want to do better.
You make it sound like it's so easy to work with the government.
I used to think it's really hard. And when I was at A.T. Chandra Foundation, we had the opportunity to work first with Niti Aayog and then with state governments. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because there are good people everywhere, right? And it's maybe I was very fortunate. We of course, it was tough in the beginning because everybody wants to work with government, right? So for them also to be able to know who out of these 100 people knocking on my door should I work with, I can understand it takes time. But once you've built that relationship and they trust you, because they see that you're there to help them make their impact faster, better, to the last mile, which they are not able to. Right?
How did you win their trust?
I think it was about showing up, right? It's about being there when, being accessible. So we would I remember one of the collectors we worked with, first time we went to meet him, we waited 4 hours for him and then got maybe 30 seconds. And there was so much skepticism, like, I can't understand why this woman from Bombay wants to do this in Madhya Pradesh. Now I can walk in, right? Because that trust was there, that we were there every week, even though it took like, I don't know, like an entire day to get there. First you fly, then you drive, then it's like 6 hours from the nearest airport. But we were there. And we were telling him stuff that he didn't know on the field, because one, they're so short-staffed. Even though there are so many people working in government, they don't have high-quality people who can give them insights. They'll give them anecdotes, right? So we were able to say, okay, this is what the data is saying, this is where we are lacking, this is what we need you to do. We need you to do these 3 things. So we just made it easier for them. That helped build trust over and over. They would call up saying, your person is not working over here. I was like, okay, done, we'll sort it out. That kind of responsiveness helped create that trust.
And what motivated you to travel such a far distance, be there every day? Like, what was driving you to do this?
I think, again, I'm going back to just experiencing what people go through. Talking to villagers who are saying, I've not had water from this water body for years. Or in our, like last 2 weeks ago when I was on the Educate Girls field visits, talking to girls over there, young women saying, मैंने तो 5वीं कक्षा तक ही पढ़ा है. And like, why? क्योंकि मेरे गांव में था ही नहीं school. So saying, okay, now you have an opportunity, and their eyes lighting up, right? Like when you see that, how can you not? Like, I don't want to go to sleep at night saying I could have done something, but I didn't. So I like to sleep well.
And I'm assuming like this transformation in stages, right? First is the access to schooling.
Yes.
And then you spoke about like how just getting to school is not good enough because that capacity is also very low.
Yeah.
And then to improve learning.
Yeah.
What is it that you focus on, and how do you leverage the government systems in both?
Yeah. So foundational learning is what we focus on for the younger students. We've created a curriculum which actually is able to break down learning to such an extent that even someone who hasn't been to school can catch up. We did a recent RCT with ID Insights. So this was along with Audacious, right? When you're scaling up, the expectation is that your learning levels are going to drop. Quality drops with scale is what everyone talks about. We actually improved our learning quality.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. So we actually were able to show 4 times the learning compared to the control group. So we had 4 levels of ASAR learning, a 1.25 standard deviation. Our DIB, which we had done a few years ago, there it was 0.3.
Right.
That's become 1.25 with more students. So it was just very heartening for us, of course. Right. But I think it's possible, right? It broke that norm that scale and quality don't go together.
And what was your secret sauce to get that?
That I'll tell you offline. No. I think it was just putting what it takes. Right? The same thing I was saying, like you cannot go to sleep knowing you've not done enough. Right? So we had the right partners to work with us. So we work with Solzak. We had the right team in place. We had the right motivation, and that desire to make every girl learn. I think that's the secret. It's not so secret sauce.
Like, let's say quality reduces with scale.
Yeah.
That is conditional on the fact that the people that you need to sort of do this, as you scale, it's harder to get these people. It's harder to also get it when you're away from the cities.
Yeah.
So what elements, when someone is trying to scale, and perhaps you can draw either from your TFI days, where the scale of Teach for India depends on the quality of the fellows, or in ISLI, like the quality of the headmasters, or in this case, what are some ways to retain the quality as one scales? Like what's your advice to NGOs that are trying to scale without loss of fidelity?
Yeah, I think one is just completely being true to that commitment to quality, right? We have a team that only measures quality.
Right.
So even if we say we've enrolled 100,000 girls, they'll come there and say, no, I'm not counting these 20,000. So like I was telling him, the head of that team, that if you are the most liked person in this organization, then you're not doing a good job, right? The second is then actually, like you said, passion alone can't cut it. Curriculum alone can't cut it either. You do have to have that passion. right? You do like simple things like we know every girl. You tell me, I'm not by heart, but if you tell me, give me the names of this, 17 girls in this village that you enrolled, we can give that to you. Anyone on my team can get it to you in 10 minutes.
Wow.
Right? So that passion for that last girl, not just the numbers, but that those girls then becoming part of the number, it doesn't happen automatically. There is a determined effort to build that passion, right? That culture. A WhatsApp message coming to us saying that Rajasthan mein there was some auspicious day and there were so many weddings happening. Girls have finished their exam and gone for their wedding, or finished their wedding and gone straight for the exam. They've changed the muhurat time so that their exam can fit in. And we've got pictures of these girls with their chudas and in the full attire, dressed up for their wedding, writing their exams. Like that, the field coordinator or the preraks that we have, who are the facilitators of this under Pragati, they are taking care of women's children while the women are writing the exam inside. Right? That doesn't come by mistake. That comes from a very deliberate culture that you're trying to create.
So, Gayatri, in our endeavor to bring, edtech to government schools, I've had to change my pitch depending on the funder. Some actually are most happy to give inputs like computers, tables, benches, chairs. Maybe they just like the fact that accounting for those, there's a price discovery model for that. And you can literally count, I gave 20 laptops, which costed so much. Then there are others that fundamentally believe, teacher training is something that's worth spending on. And that says an intermediate output towards improving learning would work. I get it gets harder when you're trying to pitch for block officer training, district officer training, changing the board exams, because how do you measure the beneficiaries? How do you justify, if you get asked 3 questions in the CSR committee, how will you defend? And I think ultimately what I've also found a lot of traction is with funding outcomes. So we were participants in a development impact bond like you. We have been able to do randomized control trials with JPAL and ID Insight like you, and a lot of the foreign foundations really value the increase in outcomes. And they're not too fussed about, did you use a tablet versus a desktop versus a laptop. In your sort of experience as both someone who's asked for money and someone who's given money, how do you see inputs, outputs, and outcomes? And what's the role of each?
Yeah. Look, I think all 3 are necessary, right? Inputs where something doesn't exist is very necessary. Do we need more smart boards in classrooms? Probably not. The classrooms exist. Government is spending on these things already. So don't replace what government would otherwise do, right? The output, say for example, like you said, teacher training or other curriculum design or whatever those components of learning outcomes are also hugely important. But I do agree that if those don't create learning outcomes, then what do you fund, right? What are you exactly funding? If I have 3 teacher training programs, I'm going to look at what do these actually deliver. So I can see where the global foundations are coming, and I'm hoping that more Indian foundations and CSRs also think about outcomes that these inputs and outputs lead to. There are of course occasions where you just fund the input because it's just the right thing to do without needing that data that connects, that log frame that connects to the outcomes. During COVID, for example, right, the foundation I worked for, A.T. Chandra Foundation, we built the first genome sequencing lab in BMC. It didn't exist. But without that lab, you couldn't tell what variants are coming up. Is there a different medication required? None of that. We were working blind in Mumbai at that time, and Mumbai had a lot of cases. So we funded it, we co-funded it, we brought in others, we just told them, look, we just need this.
Right.
We know it's going to save lives. It's simple. There's no log frame required for this. But at the same time, if I look at learning outcomes, if we don't fund actual learning of these kids, then are we really educating them?
Yeah.
Right? How do you know?
They'll be going to school but not
Correct.
learning.
Or I'll train a block officer who will have a great time in that training, and there'll be chai and there'll be samosas and maybe there'll be kaju katlis because now it become more expensive. But is that leading to better learning outcomes for the students, or is it just a great day for them to be out of the office?
So can I say that like funders can, when it comes to inputs, if speed is of the essence, as we saw in COVID, whether it's a lab or ambulances or oxygen, just decision making is paramount. And without getting into the government procurement loop, funding inputs is perfectly acceptable. And funding outputs might be also okay because it's an intermediate step. It's a long-term investment. It's something to demonstrate to the government like what might be needed. But ultimately, emphasis on outcomes, regardless of which of these is done, is necessary. And what will it take for us to change this? Like a lot of Indian corporate CSR is still going towards whether it's building, painting, provisioning of bags, sometimes even building of toilets, but not necessarily ensuring the toilets are functional, right? Which I see as an outcome. Like, why the fixation with inputs? What would it take to change the narrative on this?
So I think why is exactly what you said before. It's easy to measure. I don't need a third party. I don't need a JPAL. I don't need an ID Insights to tell me if this is working or not.
I know what the cost of a brick is.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I can break it down. I can answer to your my CSR committee. I think it's going to take the CSR committees asking those questions. Like, great building. So what?
Yeah.
That's so what we ask in business, but not in when it comes to philanthropy or CSR giving.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's also, I feel like in the education, there's a very long time delay between the intervention and value being accrued to.
Yes.
Right? Like, for example, like who does this value accrue to? So when you're sick, when you have a knee injury, when you get operated, it's very clear that the value accrues to me and my willingness to pay is there and my problem is getting solved immediately. Yeah. Whereas when was the last time a child was rushed to the hospital saying, oh, he doesn't know fractions? So I think just the fact that there is no emergency in education, the fact that this may help you 10, 20 years later.
Don't you think it's also a function of money? Like, for
Say
example,
more.
the same example, I may not go to a hospital if I have a knee issue because I can't afford it.
Right.
So I'll just hobble along and live with it.
Right.
At the same time, if I look at my kids and their school, I'm very invested. I have a full-time, overtime job, but I'm very invested in how they're doing in school. I'm there tomorrow morning for some event they have in school. I show up. If I didn't have the luxury of a job where I could do that,
right,
I would not, right? So I think I agree with what you're saying, but I think money is one big factor. It's tough for the poor to be able to get those kind of outcomes that you or I could.
Money and time.
Money and time.
Time away from work.
Which again is linked to earnings, right? So.
Yeah. Gayatri, do you feel like some areas in education are getting all the attention, all the glory, at the risk of alienating some options that are important, but are just not in the limelight?
Yeah, I think so. FLN got a lot of rightfully got a lot of attention. We didn't even have a good basic education in the country. I think we need to now start thinking about those kids in grade 2, 3 are going to be in secondary school. What happens to them? Like, they've got this great foundation, but now they're going to study new subjects. They're going to have to explore new ways of learning. Like, have we spent enough money thinking about that?
But money is finite, and there's a lot of evidence that shows that the earlier you catch the children, is a better return on investment. Like, forget FLN, if you catch them like in year 2, in year 1, maybe all the way down to pregnancy and the amount of words that fall on the mother's tummy, like, wouldn't you want to continue to do more investments in early childhood as opposed to later?
I mean, yes, ROI, I can't argue with that point of view at all. But for me, it's each child, right? So that child has finished 3rd standard, they go to 4th, and their education levels are going down and down and down. If they reach grade 10, they are barely passing the exams, maybe 50, 60%. You get into a bad college because of that. Like your outcomes are then, that's it, right? Maybe you'll have got your 12th standard, maybe you'll go through some vocational training. I think it's an injustice to that child to not provide them a good education till they finish. Right? Like, how do you, like Ashoka is so accessible to any child from any background. But what happens in between? Like, I just feel like there's this little bit of a empty sandwich.
Yeah. So how will we do this at the scale of 300 million students who go to school every day? Money is what money is. How are we going to achieve this?
I think very similar to the way we did FLN, put our minds to it, come up with innovative ways of doing it. I mean, tech has boomed. Can we use tech for learning? It's now not as expensive as it was when we were growing up, right? I mean, we couldn't even afford a computer at home till I finished college. But today, everyone has smartphones. Can there be? I'm just thinking aloud here with you. Like, if you were at, like, you have MindSpark, like you're looking at older kids, you're looking at technology. How would you bring best quality education to them?
Yeah, I'm an eternal edtech optimist, or like I say, a student who is inquisitive about how technology can solve it at scale. And we're seeing some very cost-effective ways of improving this at scale. This is also one of those things that can scale without loss of quality, right? Exactly. Because the quality of the learning product, whether it's used in Mumbai or let's say in a very tribal, rural part of India, it can sort of scale. And all of this is possible for less than 5% of what the government is spending today, or in the same range as a midday meal scheme. I feel like tech is such a great enabler, and it's also the most non-discriminatory, right? So tech doesn't care whether you're a boy or a girl, whether you're rich or poor, what caste you're from. All that it is doing is sort of checking what is your learning level and what do you need to learn next. And I also feel tech is very safe in the sense that you're not publicly reprimanded. Your friends are not making fun of you when you're learning from tech. It's infinitely patient. No one's getting upset if you ask the same question 3 times. And so I think like tech creates this very warm space for learning.
Yeah. I will bring a gender lens to it though.
Okay.
I mean, I think inputs that go into tech can sometimes be gendered.
Yeah.
When I use Google Translate, it assumes I'm a man, right? So there are some things that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Also for our girls, they don't often have access to phones at home. Right. It'll be always with the male member of the family or monitored for their use on how long and what they can do on tech. So there are nuances that we are working with, but overall, yes, I agree with you.
Nice. I'm also very excited about generative AI because, it's finally able to do things that are important, but we were not able to. For example, giving students feedback on their speaking. Now the voice recognition quality is good, the ability to handle unstructured data.
And languages, right?
And languages. Yeah. So I think these girls that you work with can then speak well, write well, do more structured thinking. All of it should be timeless skills as they enter the productive workforce at some point.
Just a small anecdote. One of the camps that I'd gone to, the Pragati camps for the older girls, I could see some of the things on the wall that they'd studied. They'd learned how to use Google Maps. They'd learned how to use ChatGPT. They'd learned how to access YouTube. And these are, like, for us, just such basic givens, but it was actually I was very happy to see that being shared.
And for anybody who's saying, like, will girls get it? I'm saying as India makes more progress, 5G will bring it to places it isn't in. Smartphone ownership is bound to go up even for girls at some point. And are we ready for that world, right? And as opposed to waiting, because even when the first school was built, it's not like we went from 0 to 100% of the schools, right? The first school was built near a metro city for the urban elite. It just sort of takes time for this to percolate.
I think my only point is that don't forget that last girl who today doesn't have it, and start building solutions for her such that when there is access, she can run with it.
Thank you, Gayatri, for coming in today. I really enjoyed our conversation. In particular, it was great to hear about the role of inputs, outputs, and outcomes. I kind of had drank so much Kool-Aid on that all that matters is learning outcomes. Do we really care if a child studies under a tree? But I think you gave an important lesson on the place of each of those. That was great to hear. Thank you also for telling us, how life is different when you have to do and execute on the ground, and why you moved from being a funder to asking for funding for work that I think is meaningful to you. I know that it becomes easier to do this once you've seen the impact on the ground, you've met the beneficiaries, you've sort of heard their stories, and sometimes even when you're serving or you're finished serving 1.6 million girls and you're on your journey to 10 million, but it's the story of that one starfish, that one girl, that one episode from the field that sort of motivates you to
Absolutely.
keep going. Of course, as we scale, there has always been doubts about whether quality would scale in the same dosage. And it was great to hear that not only did you not lose quality, you actually quadrupled the amount of learning gains. And there is, in addition to the human, the passion, there is a fabric of technology and AI that sort of weaves it and holds it all together to get to this scale. So thank you so much for sharing those anecdotes, and it was a pleasure having you here. Thank you for coming to EI.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great summary.
Yes.